Can you guess the number one question our clients ask when shopping for a new gym floor? Well, stay with me and find out on You Ask, We Answer. How much does this gym floor cost? Every person involved in providing great floor solutions for sports and recreational venues is asking this question, and usually 5 minutes into the presentation. And the majority of the time when this question is asked, it is usually prefaced with the phrase, "Now, I won't hold you to this, but can you give me an idea of how much this floor is going to cost us?" We get it. I get it. We all shop, and price is always an issue, right? Well, oddly enough, the answer to that question, regardless of who your supplier is you're talking to, it should always be the same. It depends. Now, hold on. I realize that sounds like a cop-out or an attempt to sidestep or hide the answer, but please try to consider what I call the variables that a flooring contractor must address in order to provide a firm contract price for your consideration. Here are the common considerations that must be analyzed and that affect installed costs in some manner. And I know some may sound petty, but most are critical to know and can influence the price tag for a new floor. The number one variable, the size of the gym. Due to the court dimensions recommended by the high school, collegiate, or professional rules makers, there are no small gymnasiums. A regular high school court inside the boundary lines measures out to be 4,200 square feet. That is a 50-foot by 84-foot court. If you add a 2-foot perimeter outside the court, you've bumped up the size to just under 4,800 square feet. Most gyms have the hardwood installed wall-to-wall, since other auxiliary sports can be played, and in many gyms, telescopic spectator seating must roll out onto the floor during the games. Well, depending on the size of the school and the student population and of the sport itself, a typical gym can average 7,000 square feet, perhaps even up to 20,000 or 30,000 square feet. A recent trend in today's sports venues are multi-court pay-for-play facilities that many municipalities are building. And in fact, we recently finished a facility in Texas that had 68,000 square feet of maple, incorporating 8 basketball courts, 16 volleyball courts, and a 10-gallon hat full of pickleball courts. So, as you can see, the size alone keeps one from quoting an exact price unless exact measurements are provided. What about freight? To ship a full truckload of maple flooring and subfloor components to the South can average between $4,000 to $5,000, as determined by the mileage from Michigan or Wisconsin, where 90% or more of the maple flooring is manufactured. Well, consider this: demolition of existing floors. Not a factor in new construction, but always a consideration when retrofitting a gym with a new floor. Then there's subfloor prep, especially in retrofitting an old gym with a new floor. You must also consider the cost of disposal of the old floor. Thousands of square feet of old flooring and subflooring will not fit into the school's dumpster, even if you have permission to use it. Again, the size of the gym can dramatically affect the contract, where turnkey performance is mandated. Then there's the grade of maple. This variable and a few others are worthy of their own video, and we'll try to address that in future reels. In the meantime, most maple hardwood mills offer their product in 3 or 4 different grades of maple. While it's not in the scope of this video to discuss the differences in grade, suffice it to say there is a cost difference when you buy extremely clear maple floorboards, called first grade, or maple containing natural defects that affect the appearance of the finished floor. The appearance of the floor is dramatically affected by the grade that you choose to buy. We will answer that question about grades in a follow-up video, but suffice it to say the grade selected alters the cost of the floor, and therefore it is a variable that must be considered before the final cost can be determined. Believe it or not, the width of the maple boards themselves is a variable. Maple typically comes in two face widths. 2¼ inches wide is the standard, but some maple purchases can be 1.5 inches, and that is an option that you have to consider. When the 1.5 inches is chosen, the cost to install it is increased due to the additional hours of labor required to nail the floor into the subfloor. And instead of nailing a board 2.5 or 2¼ inches wide, the installer is now only installing 1.5 inches wide floor cover, and it takes approximately 50% longer to cover the same area. In addition to the labor cost, the actual number of flooring nails being used to attach the floor to the subfloor has also increased by 50%. Then there's the subfloor options. One of the large variables in the construction of a hardwood gymnasium floor is the construction of the subfloor system found beneath the actual maple boards. Today's trends in subfloor design are typically anchored to the concrete substrate to provide consistent ball bounce and dimensional stability. Again, because of the variable cost of the subfloor designs, coupled with the cost to install those components, the subfloor option is another variable that must be considered and confirmed prior to the quote of an installed floor. One of the big variables is labor rates, and it can fluctuate depending on the geographic location. There are oftentimes fluctuations in the cost per hour of labor. Areas requiring union labor or jobs using a wage rate as dictated by our federal government can also affect the overall cost of an installed floor. Then you have finish options. By that I mean the clear sealers and stains and top coats that pop the beauty of a hardwood floor. Then there are environmental regulations mandated by some federal, state, and local jurisdictions, and they require that a water-based finish be used in lieu of the oil base traditionally used in the finishing of gym floors. Water-based finishes can cost 3 to 4 times more than the oil-based finishes. Determining which one is required will obviously affect the price of the floor, since there is a tremendous amount of finish that must be applied prior to the floor being used. Stains and paints used for lines and graphics are also a consideration. The number of court layouts required. A regulation basketball court and a volleyball court feature 2-inch wide lines and is far less costly than multiple courts. In addition to the actual paint and stains, there are the artist stencils required to be made by graphics artists for any baseline lettering, center circle art, team branding, or even sponsor logos. And then, of course, there's the labor to apply. In addition to that, you have adjustments to gym equipment. The backstops sometimes need to be raised or lowered to comply with regulations. Existing bleachers have to be taken off the wall, dealt with, and then reassembled and reattached back on the wall during the installation of the floor. The backstop height has to be adjusted to make sure that the backstop itself is regulation 10 foot from the surface of the maple floor. And of course, there's also a number of accessories that you don't always think about. Things like door thresholds and ADA required ramps, especially when retrofitting an old gymnasium with a new floor. Volleyball courts, those cover plates that you see in the floor, that are necessary to protect the safety of the athletes also have to be reinserted or inserted into a new construction of the floor. Most gyms require a vented cove base at the perimeter of the floor when the floor is installed wall to wall. And of course, there's cleanup and market conditions. And last but not least, economic factors. Market conditions, regional variations, and labor shortages can impact the pricing of materials and services. During the summer window, to work in schools, many contractors are required to pay overtime wage rates to their workers in order to meet tight project schedules. Well, to sum it up, there is no quick answer to the question, how much will it cost? And the real answer is, it depends. But there is good news. To get an accurate estimate for the cost of a maple gym floor, it's always our recommendation to obtain a firm quote from a qualified flooring professional. And by qualified, I mean one who has a reputation in the marketplace for installing gymnasium floors and not just living room and dining room carpet. They will need time to assess the specific requirements of the project, provide detailed cost breakdowns, and offer guidance on choosing the right materials and, in most cases, potential alternates to help fit your budget. The Covington team is here to assist you with a no obligation, no cost, no pressure proposal for your new floor. Visit our website at www.covington.com for the contact information of the sales professional nearest you. And here's wishing you the best in your search and look forward to your call. Be sure and hit the like button, the subscribe button, and also the notifications button to make sure you get all of the answers to the questions you've been asking. And thanks for visiting. You ask, we answer.